Hello, I'm Greg Holloway, and welcome to the Common Sense Texans video debate among the Republican gubernatorial candidates, Rick Perry, Kay Bailey Hutchison, and Deborah Medina. Each of the candidates will be presented with 10 questions that have been prepared by grassroots conservatives around the state. Now let's go to one of these questions right now.
I happen to think the most important positions in our country are governors. One of the reasons I'm running for re-election, one of the reasons I'm as passionate about staying in Texas and doing the work of this state is so that we can be a reflection of our Constitution, the way that it was envisioned by the Founding Fathers. The 10th Amendment matters. The 10th Amendment's pretty simple. It basically says that the federal government was created by the states to be an agent for the states, not the other way around. And we are so turned around in this country today where Washington, D.C. is mandating programs back to the states, one size fits all, whether it's on health care or energy policy or education. I've said no to this federal government on more than one occasion, whether it was on them trying to force us to take unemployment insurance money with strings attached, or whether it was in trying to lure us into changing the way that we educate our children with federal dollars. I said no. And I hope that there are more governors elected that share the passion for our Constitution, for the 10th Amendment in particular, and push back on Washington, D.C. My goal over the course of the next 4 to 5 years is to make Washington as inconsequential in our lives as it can be, because that is the way this country was founded. States ought to compete against each other, not having this one-size-fits-all mentality from Washington, D.C., pushing down on the states. That will cause there to be no competition. And we know what the result of that is. That's socialism. And America is not a socialist country. It has failed in every place that it's been put into to effect. And we don't need to see any more to know that what this administration and this Congress is doing is not healthy for competition in this country. So if there's one thing that you're going to see me focused on and me talking about a lot, as I have since last April 15th and tea parties all across this country, and speaking of tea parties, I hope you will continue to go to them. If you haven't been, go find one, be engaged in a tea party across the country as we go forward, because it's been that passion, that focus that has made this administration realize they're on the wrong track.
Well, I agree. I think the federal government and Congress has encroached immensely on states' rights. And every time I have an opportunity, I try to stop that, because there are too many mandates, unfunded mandates, and too many requirements. I am a co-sponsor of Senator Coburn's bill that is the Enumerated Powers Act, that would require every bill that goes through Congress to state the specific enumerated power in the Constitution that gives Congress the right to act. So I think that is a first step. On the governor's side, certainly I think that we have to take every action to keep our standards, keep our sovereignty, keep Texas values, and keep Texans governing Texas. I will work to do that in every way, where we can turn back a federal mandate that is unconstitutional. I think we ought to file a lawsuit and do it. When the Congress passes a bill that's an unfunded mandate, I think we ought to require the federal government to pay for that unfunded mandate. I also think we ought to be making the federal government pay more of the costs of incarcerating illegal aliens and treating illegal aliens. I think that it is essential that we make the federal government pay for the areas of responsibility that they are not fulfilling, but is their requirement.
It's really important that we get back to our founding, that we understand, as our founders did, as the authors of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights did, that there is wisdom in the minds of men, great opportunity in Texas to confer with leaders in the Texas legislature and with members of the executive branch, and indeed with members of our judiciary, to find the best ways to chart the wisest course for returning the proper balance between a sovereign state and her limited federal government. The founders envisioned two tools for the states to use. One, called nullification, is a legislative measure where the state legislature passes law that restricts, nullifies, or voids federal actions that are outside the bounds of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8. That's one tool, one remedy that would be available to the state of Texas that has not been exercised in years. Our friends in Montana have used it to nullify Real ID. They've used it to push the federal government back on gun rights and ownership. And 13 other states, as of last November, 13 of our sister states have introduced nullification language against the federalization of health care, and yet the Texas legislature has been silent in these issues. I will lead and encourage them to nullify. A second tool available is called interposition. Interposition is a tool available to the executive branch in concert with the Attorney General's office, the state comptroller, and other members of the Texas executive branch. The governor would issue orders to state agencies instructing them not to jump through the hoops, not to dance to the tune that Washington is calling when that tune has no authority in the U.S. Constitution. I believe we should use these tools aggressively, that we should use them strategically. We've particularly talked about, for example, using them to reduce the impact and eventually to remove from Texas business, agriculture, and energy the EPA. That's a prime area where we've seen an overabundance of federal involvement, and it is costing our businesses, it is costing agriculture, energy, and manufacturing. We're not able to produce as we would if Texas were addressing the needs of those industries. We must use interposition to remove the EPA from the back of Texas businesses.